Good afternoon, everybody. This is Jason here. I am on location at Cumberland Transit. I'm here with another Jason. This is Jason Thienel, and I'm here to talk to him a little bit about his running. Jason is a very interesting individual because he just doesn't do like your run-of-the-mill trail races. He does like a lot of really unique stuff, and so we're going to focus a little bit on that. He has ran some of the big baller type races here in the South, and we can hit on those as well. So anyway, thanks for doing this, Jason. I know you're really busy guy here, so we'll just start out kind of with like where are you from?
Yeah, I always hate that question because I'm kind of from a couple different places. But my dad's from the Northeast and my mom is from Georgia, so I usually say they kind of met in the middle in Tennessee. But I've lived in around Nashville for most of my life. But I always say I didn't learn to talk in the South, so I don't know if that.
Well, you don't sound like them. You don't sound like
yeah.
You're from the
I
South.
mean, there's I love the South. I've spent most of my life here, but that's just what I say is I didn't learn to talk here.
I got you.
But yeah.
Cool. All right. So you're here now. I mean, you're here, and you're a big outdoors guy.
Yeah.
You do a lot of outdoor stuff. If you follow Jason's Instagram account, you see he does all sorts of stuff. He bikes, he runs, he hikes, and I wanted to preface that before I got going, just so I could kind of just say that he's like a jack of all trades. So we'll hit on your running. And because that's mainly what I focus on is trail running. But
right.
but so what kind of got you into the running thing? I mean, did you start out biking and hiking and then move to running, or did you start out running and?
Yeah, so my dad always, like growing up, he cultivated just a strong sense of like exploration and adventure in me, and so I think I've kind of always been searching for the vehicle to explore, and it seems like trail running is the best vehicle I've found so far. But yeah, for a long, like kind of what got me into like the outdoors, for lack of a better word, was backpacking. Like I used to backpack a whole lot. My wife and I, that was our thing, is to go backpacking. And then for a long time, I got into rock climbing, which I still really like to rock climb. I just don't spend as much time doing it now. In college, I gained the freshman 40 and just knew I needed to run to lose weight. And so I had at my apartment, before GPS watches, I mapped out a mile with my car. I just used the odometer in my car and mapped out a mile, and I would just run that mile.
I've done that before. That's what you're saying. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. And so, I started doing that, and I think I saw a Patagonia ad at one point that had somebody running on a trail, and I was like, that seems way more fun than running on the road. And so I went to Percy Warner, and I used to run the White Trail all the time, and that was kind of what got me into it, and it just kind of continued from there. So
did you, like, from a distance standpoint, did you start out like racing, doing like any races like 5K, 10K, half marathon style, or did you, like, I know last week when I was interviewing Vince, I think he went from like a 10K or something straight to like a 50K.
Right. Yeah. I didn't do that. I had a good friend Taylor at the time that he taught me about running. Like he showed me what a synthetic t-shirt was, and like he told me the importance of like good running shoes. He worked at a running store at the time, and so him and I would run together, and 3 miles was kind of all I would do. Like I would just run 3 miles to stay fit. And he tricked me one time into running 5 miles. There's no GPS watch.
Right, so you have no idea.
Yeah,
you're just like going. Yeah. And if you don't know, you're just
exactly
going. Right.
Yeah. So he was like, at the end I was like, Taylor, I think that was more than 3 miles. And he was like, no, that was 5. Like, good job. That was your first 5 miles. And so he actually went to school in England, and he was back visiting. And he said, I used to live down the road at the Blackstone apartment complex, and the Music City Marathon used to start right here in front of Cumberland Transit. And so he was coming to stay with me, and he was like, hey, the weekend I'm going to stay with you is that marathon and half marathon. He's like, you want to jump in and run it? And I was like, dude, I've only run 5 miles before, And he was just like, it'll be fine. He was like, worst case scenario, like your wife can come pick us up.
Right.
And I was like, okay. So we ran it in 2 hours, and you know, I was really sore the next day, but I was like, I should like try and train for, you know, full marathon. So I did that, and then from there I went to 50K. I think while I was training for the marathon, I signed up for 50K, and then like that was the last road race I ran.
So did you do the Music City Marathon
I did,
here?
yeah.
Yeah. Now, did you do it when it started here, or did you do it when
I
it
did
started?
it when it started here.
Really?
Uh-huh.
I've only ran it. I ran the half with a friend and get him through it, but I ran my first marathon was it when you started down there.
Cool.
And
Where did it start?
It started down there by the convention center.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I don't think I'd ever run the marathon again.
Yeah.
I mean, I've ran one.
On the road, it's hard.
One road marathon.
Yeah,
and
same here.
That's it. So I feel you.
Yeah.
So once you got to the trails, like how, and I remember looking at your ultra sign up, and I'm not going to go straight to like your big your baller. I call them baller races because they're tougher type style races.
Right.
But like, how did you go about picking, you know, your races? Like, you know, like, was there something that drew you to start? Was it the course? Was it like your friend said, hey, let's go sign up for this one? Or how did that look like?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, when it comes down to it, I just like being in the mountains. So I try and pick mountain races. That's what I'm into. And I remember when I used to just run the White Trail, I read an article on like Outside Magazine or something about UTMB being the hardest race in the world. And so at the time I was like, I want to do that. I want to do the hardest race in the world. And so I started looking at, and, you know, I didn't only run 2 miles at a time. Like that's the furthest I'd run was 2 miles.
Right.
And so I started looking it up, and I'm sure at the time there were races in the U.S. that you could do that qualified you for UTMB, but I couldn't find them at that time. And so like basically the only thing I could find was in Europe, that you had to qualify races in Europe. And I was like, well, I can't go spend the summer in Europe to qualify for this race. So I kind of just wrote it off. But you know, stump jump was my first 50K, and that was just because there wasn't a lot of 50Ks at that time. So you know, I had known some people that had done it. Jamie Dial said, yeah, you know, go do stump jump. And so that went pretty well. And then, you know, just like everybody else, I just started looking for other stuff. Yeah. Jamie Dial is he's a local legend in Nashville, but his advice was always, if you're going to run a long way, like 50 or 100 miles, make sure it's somewhere pretty. And so that's kind of been my rule of thumb the whole time. Yeah.
And that makes sense. I mean, I've ran stump jump, and it's very beautiful, but it's very challenging.
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
It's very challenging. I've done a couple of the Rock Creek races out there, so I know what you're saying. So it's a great course. So, you know, but you know, looking at your pedigree of races, you know, you did Cruel Jewel, another very tough race.
Yeah, extremely tough.
So when you did Cruel Jewel and you did Cloud Splitter, which I had not really been very familiar with Cloud Splitter until a friend of mine last year decided that he wanted to do it. Cool. And then I started looking into it, and I was like, man, this is a hardcore race.
Yeah, it's tough.
And so, like, again, the mountains, like, how did you train for something like Cloud Splitter? I mean, because that's some major elevation at Cloud Splitter.
Yeah, I mean, Red Trail over and over is usually what I do. Yeah. When I did UTMB in 2018, that was kind of the first time that I did like a training specific like regiment for a race. Up until then, I kind of just like, I followed Hal Kerner's plan a lot of times, but I just kind of, you know, I added on to that and shifted it and made my own. But most of the time I would just do laps.
Wow.
Kept me fit enough to at least finish them.
I mean, and that's what I see a lot of people do locally here.
Yeah.
Because they can just hit that red trail.
Yeah. Because
you can just get a ton.
Yeah, per mile, it's a pretty good amount of it.
Per mile, it's definitely a lot. So, so you mentioned UTMB. So what was the qualifier for you to get into UTMB?
So,
actually, we can do CCC or I say we do both, because I like to hear your, you know, kind of a little bit of kind of what both experiences were like for you.
Yeah, certainly. So I was just one afternoon when we were open on Sundays, I was at the front counter and it was slow. I was dinking around, and I had remembered that I had always wanted to do UTMB, the hardest race in the world, right at the time. And so I was like, I wonder if I have enough points to do it. And so I put my name in the thing. I didn't have enough for UTMB, but I had enough for CCC. And so I was like, well, let's do it. I put my name in, and I got, you know, it's a lottery, but I got it on the first time. So I went and didn't really know what I was signing up for, but it's extremely hard. And CCC is starts in Chamonix and goes through Courmayeur and then ends back in. I'm incorrect. It starts in Courmayeur, goes through Champelloc, Switzerland, and then finishes in Chamonix. So those are the three C's. It's 100K and lots and lots. I forget what the vert is, but lots and lots.
It's just
of
a
vert.
lot.
Yeah.
So how did you deal with the altitude for that?
Yeah, you don't really go up above like 9,000, so it didn't really affect me that much. And you weren't up there for very long. It stays around 3,000-4,000.
It just looks real high, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, you top out pretty high, but you come back down pretty quick.
So looking at that race, the progression of it, like did it go pretty smooth for you? Did you have any major rough points in that one? Or?
For the most part, it was cold and rainy, and so I do much better in the cold, and so I had a pretty good race. Just middle of the pack, nothing crazy, but everything went pretty well for me. So at that point, I thought, let's try for the big one, and that's when I kind of started focusing my races towards being able to qualify for UTMB. That's why I did Cruel Jewel, because it's a UTMB qualifier. I think Dark Sky, a few others.
Yeah. So when you did UTMB, did that one go the same way? I mean, or was that
really.
Was that a little bit tougher?
It's really hard because it was hot. So like basically from where you start in Chamonix around to Italy was really warm, and so I just kind of, when I got to Courmayeur, Italy, which is about halfway, I just really wanted to quit. I was like, this is not going well. Like I just felt sick, and fortunately I had a really good crew, and they were like, just. My wife made me eat like a banana, and she gave me Tylenol and like Tums and a few other things. She was like, shove all this in your mouth.
You just got to keep going.
Get out of here.
Right.
Yeah. And so when I crossed the border into Switzerland, it got cold and it started raining again, and then I felt a lot better and I was able to finish strong.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. When you cross the border, do you actually have to stop?
You don't. That's what I thought going into it. They do make you carry your passport. You have to have a passport in your vest, but you don't have to stop. It's
you just keep motoring through. Yeah, and I bet with something like that, is as much as you really want to kind of, I say go fast, but go faster, you also want to be able to take in the atmosphere, because easily it could be a once in a lifetime thing, right? I mean, you may never get to run UTMB again.
And it's hands down the prettiest course I've ever been on.
Yeah, so I guess that was definitely probably the best part of it for you, was probably the experience of getting to see all that.
Certainly, yeah.
Because I always, from what I hear from reading articles about the race and everything, is that it's not like in America where, not that in America we don't care about trail runners, but over there, like, you have large swaths of people like cheering you on, and they're like, out on the streets and stuff like that. I mean, it's just like an atmosphere of like just craziness.
It's great when you go through towns. Everybody's just out on the streets, and it's like a party atmosphere. And they're really excited for the runners. So yeah, it makes it a lot easier. And your name is on your bib, and so all these people are yelling your name and saying, "Come on,
you can do it."
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. It's a great feeling.
So do they actually have like aid stations set up there, or is it all just crew based?
Yeah, they have aid stations just like here, and they're in towns a lot, which is kind of cool. But they're a little bit different. They do have wine at the aid stations, and then most all of them. Which at UTMB I got sick, and I switched to basically at each aid station I ate salami, cheese, and crackers. They had those at all the aid stations, so that was my food to get me through. But yeah, a lot more real food, and they don't have a lot of like sports drinks options either. I think they have just like one thing for sports drinks. So yeah, definitely a different experience.
I bet it was.
Yeah.
Now, when you get into a race like that, does it kind of have like that feel that you would get here stateside if you were running like a Hard Rock or like Western States, where you show up there and they like have like big meetings, and there's like a big like I won't say festival, but like a big like intake system where there's like meetings and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so in Chamonix there's you know, they have a big expo set up with like all the brands come and they have, you know, all their products out there. And then, yeah, like all the elite athletes are walking around and usually signing autographs and stuff like that.
That's cool.
Yeah, it makes it to like where it's a sports event here in the States. You know, it's more on that caliber over there.
Right, because like over, like, you know, here we're more in the States, we're more focused on the big sports, and
right.
like, you know,
Yeah.
but over there they gear more toward like those trail running, alpine style stuff over there.
Especially in the mountains, you know, that's kind of their bread and butter. Like it brings a lot of people there.
Right.
They call Chamonix the playground because there's so many things to do there.
So did you actually stay where did you stay while you were there? Did you stay in Chamonix, or did you?
We stayed in Chamonix for UTMB. We got an Airbnb, and yeah, it was great. We kind of messed up when we did CCC. When I got in, I didn't book a place immediately. And so basically my wife she's the crew chief master. She found a different hotel for every night. So we basically had to move around. We had a place to stay, but we had to move around every night because we just waited too long to book it. But so that was an experience in itself.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That's one of those things where, you know, it's literally like in my opinion, if I could pick any race to run, it would be UTMB.
Oh man, that's
over
great.
Western States, over Hard Rock. Nothing against those.
Yeah.
But just the pictures and the atmosphere and it's just like it's at a different level.
Yeah, it's really special. Yeah.
And it's super cool. So I guess, like, you know, when you look at that, you know, you talked about doing Cruel Jewel. We've already mentioned Cloud Splitter a little bit because that's a really tough 100-miler in North Carolina. If you're not familiar with it, because I know I was not familiar with it until recently, and it doesn't get a whole lot of press for some odd reason, which you would think it would.
Yeah, it's a great race.
It really from what my friend said, it's really and it's tough. It's like it's like no joke.
Yeah.
Like, you know, so anyway, that's just amazing. So also looking at kind of some of the other things you've done, Bigfoot, the Bigfoot 200. From what I hear, I don't plan on doing a 200-mile race. I think it'd be fun. The idea of it sounds fun, but I hear that's like the best one to run. I mean, how did you go about picking that one out? Were all the other ones at that point, or was that the only one?
There were all three of them. You know, there's Bigfoot, and then there's Tahoe 200, and then Moab 240. And so my progression up until then was, you know, I wanted to see if it was possible for me to run 50K, if it was possible for me to run 50 miles. Like, that was kind of my attitude the whole time. I was like, I don't know if I can run 100 miles. And so then when I heard there's a 200-mile race, I was like, well, you know, we've started this journey. Let's try that as well. So my friend Jeff Davis had run Bigfoot the year prior, and I asked him about it, and he was just like, yeah, you know, that's the one to do. It's similar terrain to the Smoky Mountains, so, you know, stuff that we're familiar with. And it's really pretty and really hard, and it's very varied terrain as well. Like, you start around Mount St. Helens, and so because of the eruption of Mount St. Helens, it's really exposed and kind of deserty for a while, and then you know, dip back into the trees. So you get a little bit of everything at Bigfoot.
I got you. So strategizing for something like that, I guess how much running do you really do in something like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of off and on. You know, it's like run when you feel good, when you can. My friend Jeff that did it, he gave me such great advice. He said, don't, because a lot of people are like, oh, it's you do 50 miles a day and you can make the cutoffs, and it's just not good to look at it like that. You know, like, his thing was just focus on being out. Like, you're going to be out for a long time, so don't focus on the miles or the time. Just try and make up as much ground as you can. So that was kind of my attitude. Like, started off really slow just to make sure, you know, I didn't go out too fast and too hard.
Yes, absolutely.
And just kind of like slowly through the whole race, I slowly pushed that gas pedal down and got faster and faster till the end, and was quite amazed at how much I could run, like, in the last 20 miles of a 200-mile race. So, like,
did you hit a bunch of walls during that, or was it just pretty much just like a nice progression?
It was a good progression. I took really good care of myself. You know, just didn't, like I said, I didn't push the throttle too hard. And you have the cutoffs are so generous that you have more time to deal with that. You know, you don't have to go as fast. There was a time where I got to an aid station and the bottom opened up and it started pouring down rain. And so I just sat there with my crew and just waited till it stopped. And I had enough time to do that, but it kept me from going into the night soaking wet, and I was able to, make up more miles because of that. So just being like, at that distance, it's more about being smart than being fast.
Oh yeah, I mean that, and that makes sense, because it's all about managing your time.
Exactly.
And even with 100-milers, you have to manage your time to some extent. I mean, it's different because it's significantly less than a 200-mile difference, but distance, but still.
Same thing.
Same theory. It's about
if you
managing.
Think about if there's 10 aid stations and you spend 10 minutes at each of those, that's a good chunk of your time.
Oh, absolutely. So you did that one, and you were successful at it. Mm-hmm. And so do you have any thoughts of doing the other two at any point, or?
Yeah, I looked at doing Tahoe. Somebody told me that was really dusty. So I kind of, and I think it gets hot too. So I kind of avoided that. But yeah, I'd like to do the other two. But that brings us to Cocodona. That's kind of why they came out with Cocodona, and it's 250. So that's now the longest race in the U.S. So I said, I got to try that as well.
And the cool thing about Cocodona was, and we'll go ahead and hit on that while you're there, is that it seemed like to me that race was extremely well done. Just from the organization. Yeah. I remember watching the live feeds of it, and it was I mean, what Jamil did for that was just insane.
Yeah, they have some stuff to figure out after it being a first year. There's a big section that there was no water and they ran out of water. And it was really tough. I mean, it was really hot and really tough at the beginning. So I think next year they're going to add an aid station in between there. It was I think it was 22 miles without aid. And they recommended that you take, I can't remember, 3.5 or 4 liters of water out. And it just wasn't enough water.
So correct me if I'm wrong. So you don't pass any sort of water sources where if you wanted to filter water, you wouldn't even have that option, right?
Early in the spring, I think there was a creek that was running, but by the time the race started, there was nothing there.
So. Because I was wondering that, looking at the course, I was I wonder if it got to a point where somebody might have to filter water if they were, I don't want to say desperate, but if they were in need.
Yeah, and that's what, they told you to expect that. They said bring a filter, and actually Ben Light and I actually kind of found a small trickle of a spring at some point. We crawled up into some nasty brush and we kind of laid face to face and used my little filter and let it fill up, and it got full of mud and it got really gross, but we were able to, I don't know, I think we got maybe 6 or 8 ounces out of it.
Wow.
But it was just enough to
to help you out. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and let's face it, at this point in the game, you're, muddy water that's filtered is better than no water at all. I watched a lot of YouTube guys that through hike, and I mean, some of the water they drink, I'm looking at it and I'm like, but the guy's basically look, it's either this or not surviving, and he's you have to drink what's in front of you.
Right.
So anyway, so let's talk about that race a little bit. You were trained up. You felt really good about all of it, and just kind of work through how that went for you.
Yeah. So I think I was probably in the best shape I've ever been in for that race, and got to mile 40. And just did one of those trips where, I felt I was going downhill running, and I caught myself instead of falling, caught myself with my foot. And there's those times where you should just really fall.
Right.
You would be less injured if you just
You'd be better off taking that fall.
Yeah, and so I caught myself and I torqued something, and it hurt, and I kind of walked for a few minutes, but it didn't feel like it was that bad. And so I kept running on through, and got to the aid station probably at mile 60 or something like that. I can't remember exactly where it was, but that's when it really started to okay, I think something's wrong. And then my crew was waiting for me at 71, I believe. And so through the first night, I completely stopped running and just turned into hobbling hiking. Like it was just, each step was like, oh.
Mm-hmm.
And so I couldn't move fast enough to, I didn't want to hobble in another, 180 miles or whatever.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So we tried everything. I tried to take a nap, and I took Tylenol, did a lot of stretching, and just tried to get it back to where it wasn't painful, but it just turned out to be too much. So I came back and saw a doctor, and it turns out I have a rock climbing injury from like more than 10 years ago. And it turns out when I broke my leg, I didn't know, but I also broke my back. So I have a compression fracture.
Holy cow.
That I didn't even know about.
That's nuts.
Yeah, and so that just contributed to like everything being out of whack. And I'm in good shape now, but learned a lot about failure and quitting and knowing when to give up.
Oh, well, absolutely.
When it's time.
Right, and ultimately a finish isn't worth hurting yourself. And
especially with a back problem.
Right, and you're not the first person I've heard with that. I actually was watching this documentary on a bodybuilder, and he had broke this part of the back of his neck and wasn't even aware of it.
Really?
And was continuing to lift weights and like damaged himself permanently because of it, and had to have like part of his spine
and that's what
fused.
I didn't want to do.
Right, because you don't want to like screw yourself up permanently. And I mean, let's face it, there's going to be another Coconut 250,
exactly.
right?
Yeah, I'm signed up for next year.
You signed. I saw that when I was looking through your races. I'm like, he's going back.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
When I was out there, I was like, my wife was like, you want to try next year? And I was like, no, I'm done. But then, just like always, you come back and you forget how much it hurt, and you're like, yeah, I do want to try that again.
Yeah, you sound like me. I'm always like anytime I have a DNF, the first thing I say is I'm never doing this again.
Yeah.
And then like 2 months later, I'm like, I've got to sign back up.
You start looking on ultrasound.
Right, and my friends are like, you said you weren't doing this, and I'm like, I lied.
Yeah.
Okay, it was I lied.
I didn't know what I was talking about.
I was delirious. Yeah. So all right, so we're going to take just a quick break here real quick, and we'll be back, and we will go over some more stuff. There's actually quite a bit more to talk about. So anyway, we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. All right, we're back, and we got some beers, and we're ready to roll for the second part of the interview. All right, so we've talked about a lot of the races that you've done, and we're not completely done, but let's focus a little bit on, you've done some FKTs, and you just did one recently, but I want to go back a little bit. A really cool FKT you did, in my opinion, was the Percy Warner Red, White, and Blue 100-mile spectacular, I like to call it. So basically, just to break it down for you, Jason here got on his bike, he rode down the Percy Warner, and he ran 100 miles, and then he got back on his bike and he went home. That's right.
Yeah.
That's pretty gnarly. So let's break that down a little bit. So before we started interviewing here, we kind of briefly talked about it. So you had made an attempt prior to.
Yeah, I had attempted it maybe the year before or 2 years before, and I wanted to do, the reason why I wanted to do it is because I wanted to do an unsupported 100-miler. I just wanted to, I'd heard about, there's one out west, and I forget the name of it, but you basically do it unsupported, and it benefits a local search and rescue. Like all the money goes to the search and rescue.
That's cool.
And you have a spot, and if you get lost, they basically practice and come and find you. But you're just completely self-supported, and you do 100 miles. So I really liked that idea, and I was like, well, I could just do it, Percy Warner, down the street. And so I tried it, and I made it, I think 5 or 6 laps, I can't remember. I got back to my truck, and it was nighttime, and it was that point in a 100-mile run where you just don't want to do it anymore. And so I just said, screw it, I'm gonna go home. Like my bed is 8 minutes away. Like I'm just gonna go to bed.
Well, it's definitely easy to do when your house is that close.
Exactly, yeah. So I got in my warm truck, and I drove home, and it just still kept, like, I just had that itch to go back and do it. So I was like, okay, when I went back and did it, I was like, let's change things. Like, I'm gonna ride my bike, so that way my truck won't be there and I can't leave. I don't necessarily want to ride 10 miles back to my house, and when I can just keep going and finish the loop. So it turned out I had really good weather. I think that was really helpful. It was just nice and crisp and cool. I did it in November, I think.
Oh yeah, that's a great time of year.
It was perfect. And so the one crazy part about it is, anybody that's run a lot of miles in Percy Warner, if you're doing loops, you see the same person a couple times, right? And they're like, what are you crazy doing loops out here?
Right.
Everybody's seen that look in somebody's eyes, but the next day when I was still running, there was a guy that he was there the day before, and then he came back to hike the next day, and he saw me again and just gave me this look like, what? You're still wearing the same thing. Like, I don't think it fully computed for him, but he definitely gave me a really weird look.
He's like looking at him, he's like, that guy looks exactly the same as yesterday.
I saw him yesterday. Was that yesterday? Yeah.
Did he wash his clothes?
Yeah.
Or did he just put the same clothes on?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. So I take it the second time, just really smooth. I mean, you just kind of sailed through it.
It went
any
better.
major walls?
There's definitely low points. I mean, it's
because it's tough out there.
Yeah, to do 9 red, white, and blues, I think it ended up being 18,000 feet a game.
Good night.
It's a serious thing to do.
So what were you doing for water and stuff out there?
Yeah, so I basically set it up to where I kind of shuttled water back to my bike. So I would stop at both the nature center and the, what do they call it, where the cross country course, there's that place that you can get water as well. So I would get water as well there, and I would shuttle one back, put it on my bike, so I would have another one for the next loop, and that way I only had to carry it half the time. And then I basically took a bigger kind of backpack. It wasn't really a vest, it was more like a backpack, and I just had that full of food. My wife made me a bunch of quesadillas and just all kinds of typical aid station food I had in my backpack.
So you just stuck it back. So essentially, the only thing that comes to mind to me is one of those fast pack style packs.
Yeah.
The ones that Solomon makes.
Yeah.
They kind of have stuff in the front, but then they have a bigger compartment in the back, and you just kind of cram stuff down in there.
Exactly. Yeah, it was an ultimate direction fast pack. So
cool.
I still had bottles in the front, but I had a lot of space to carry food and clothing. Yeah.
So how was the bike ride home?
It was awful. When I finished, I started at the stairs on the White Trail, and when I finished, I came back down, and there was a big group of college students there just hanging out, and I really wanted to tell them I just ran 100 miles, but I'm like, they don't care. They don't even know what that means.
Yeah,
so I just kind of sat there, and I drank some water and ate some food, and then got back on my bike, and it was still cold when I left on the bike, so I had a jacket on. And I remember when I drive past Kroger near White Bridge Road,
right.
I usually on my bike, I go across the street from Kroger, and I use that light to cross back over, so it's not a dangerous crossing. I'll just go across with the light. And I remember coming back through there and just feeling like I was drunk, and I think a lot of people that saw me thought that I was drunk because I was just barely keeping the bike up. And so I stopped at the light and took my jacket off, and then pedaled home, and just tried to, I think I went a further route home trying to avoid hills, because I didn't want to pedal up any hills.
Who, after doing that, who's going to want to ride a bike up a hill?
I was pretty wiped out.
That's nuts. So, and no brave soul has attempted that since you.
Not that I know of.
I've not heard of anybody who's even tried it. I don't think.
Not that I know of. They haven't told me.
No, because that's extreme.
Unless you're a dumb thing to do.
Well, and unless you're local, you really don't understand how hard it is.
Yeah.
Until you've been out there and you ran those 3 courses.
Yeah.
Compounded on top of each other. The red one's hard on top, by itself.
Yeah.
But then you slap the blue one, and the blue one is very subtly difficult, because you're thinking, the blue ain't that bad.
Yeah.
But after you ran the blue a couple times, you're like, this isn't that
tough.
easy.
Yeah.
This isn't that easy.
There's a long hill on the Blue Trail.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, there's I know that hill very well. So that's very cool. And extremely impressive. I can't imagine. After running a couple I think I'd probably be good.
Well, it went up and down. I think I did 4, and I was like, oh, that went really easy. And then 5 and 6 were just awful. And I ended up calling Amber at one point and saying, hey, I think I'm just gonna come home. And she was just like, no, keep going. Like you got this. You can do it.
She's awesome. She's like, I'm locking the door.
Yeah, exactly.
You cannot come home.
Don't come home until it's finished.
I've rekeyed the house.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's very cool. So you did that, and I think that's really neat. And then, like, you know, recently you did the Art Loeb, and then looking back at some of the things, you've got a couple FKTs on that one, right?
Yeah. So it's funny. Last year, 2020 was going to be my year of FKTs anyway. That's what I wasn't going to race. I was just going to focus on FKTs, and then COVID happened, and so it kind of forced me to do that anyway. So. You know, I wanted that one, the double Art Loeb, and I also, I tried for double Scar as well, but I had back issues with double Scar. So I got the Art Loeb double FKT, but the GPX file that I had downloaded from the FKT site was incorrect.
Oh no.
Yeah, and so I still have the FKT, but it's flagged. I have the unsupported FKT, but it's flagged, and so I was like, I want it to be no.
Yeah, of course you do. I mean, he wants to be flagged.
Right. So, but the last year when I did it, I think it was 2 or 3 days later, a local guy out there went and he got the supported time. And so I was like, you know, this summer I want to go back and just I want to do it exactly right, and I want to have the overall FKT. So that was the plan this summer, and everything went really well, worked out.
So what was the draw to that trail in particular?
Yeah, so some of our best friends live in Brevard, and you know, I really like racing and I like to do races, but to me, like, my favorite thing to do is just the unsupported, like, things that are just out there, you know, like Grand Canyon Rim to Rim.
Right.
You know, I really want to do the Zion Traverse at some point.
So more like the adventure style run.
Yeah,
right. I mean,
that's kind of what.
I mean, I mean, you like to race, but ultimately the adventure runs are kind of your passion, right?
That's if I could pick something to do, like that's what I would do. I like you said, I really like to race, but that kind of stuff is what attracts me to it. So, you know, somebody had said, oh, you know, the Art Loeb Trail is 30 miles, you should do that, and I did it, and it's really rugged, and I think that's what attracts me to it. The first half is pretty chill. It's like a normal trail like you would think of, but then in the last half, in the wilderness section, especially if you're going north, it's pretty crazy. Like, it's really overgrown, it's not marked at all, so it makes for a complete adventure.
Well, I mean, that's what you see with a lot of trails, right? I mean, they always start out very pretty.
Yeah.
And then the sections that nobody ever goes on,
right, exactly.
You like get to it and you're like, what the hell is this? I mean, there's like, can somebody please cut some of this down?
Right. Is this a game trail?
Right. I mean, you expect to get shot at any moment, or see some people in some camo.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I know that, like, what race was it? I think it was the year that I was running Stump Jump, like, it had gotten moved or something because of hunting season, and I'm thinking, holy crap, I don't want to be out there and get shot, you know, because that's like part of it's out in private property or whatever. So anyway, that's pretty cool. So you got those FKTs. So you got anything, like, what else are you chasing? What else are you looking at FKT wise?
FKT wise, I don't necessarily. There's one in the Smokies I'd like to create. I'm just kind of keeping close to the chest.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then I was the first one to establish the Art Loeb out and back. So I kind of like that, you know. And same thing with Percy Warner, being able to put your mark on it, and but also, like, I would like to see more people
like try
attempt it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and see, you know.
Well, I think that's what's cool, is like trying something new, right? Because ultimately, somebody else is going to say, "Hey, I want to beat that guy."
Yeah.
I can run that faster than him.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that's the interesting part about FKTs is, you know, last summer when I did Art Loeb out and back, there was no time for it. There was no time to beat. So I kind of just, you know, I didn't have anything to shoot for. But going back, like, having something to beat, you know, I shaved probably 3 hours off my time, which was really cool just because I had something to shoot for, I did it faster. So I really like that aspect of FKTs.
I think that's what's great about running, because you think about it, when you look at course records or any sort of record, right?
Yeah.
Like this year with Vol State, Bob Hearn crushed it.
Yeah.
I got in like a little bit over 3 days. It's
Right.
nuts.
That's crazy.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, the dude just like hammered it.
Yeah.
But going into it, I mean, you know, Greg Armstrong had laid down a really stout time, and
Right.
everybody's like, and it's been there for a minute, you
Yeah.
know, and everybody's like, who can beat Greg?
Right.
You know, is anybody going to be able to beat Greg?
And
Then all of a sudden, boom, Bob shows up and it's like completely like just lays it down and just like crushes it. And it's just like, that's the cool thing about what you're talking about is, you know, getting that enthusiasm out there. It's somebody that would look at what you did and it's like, oh, I think I can do the same thing. And then, right. And then that would, you know, maybe fuel your fire to go out and say, hey, you know what? I want to get that back. That's mine.
Right. Yeah.
You know, so that's pretty sweet. So, all right. Well,
that's definitely a cool thing.
FKTs are cool, and it's out of my wheelhouse for anything like that. But I enjoy talking to people that do them because it's like it's something different. It's different than racing.
Right.
I mean, it's a different type of running.
Yeah.
Because you're by yourself.
Right.
Well, for the most part.
Yeah, depending on how you do it.
Depending on how you're doing
and
it.
that's what I like about it too. Is, you know, Buzz, one of the guys that runs the website, he always talks about how, depending on the route, sometimes like supported might be the best way to do it, but sometimes unsupported might be the best way. You know, maybe there's places where you can't get crew, so it would make it, you know, it would make your time slower if you had crew, which I think is pretty cool.
No, absolutely, absolutely, and I think that's pretty cool. And speaking of tough things to do, we're almost getting to the end here. He's got so much stuff. I could literally talk to him for forever. But so coming up, you're about to try something really challenging.
Yeah.
We call it the No 200.
Right. Yeah.
It's 200 miles in 4 days. What he's hoping to do is essentially do 2 of the no business courses back to back.
Correct. Yeah.
And that's and then that was tough.
It's really tough. I tried it last year, and the style that I want to do it in is I want to do the course one way first, and then I want to line up for the race and do the race, and be able to beat the, you know, be able to do it within the race confines. You know, last year when I did it, I wasn't quite fast enough on the second loop to stay within the race, and that was something that was really important to me, as I wanted to, you know. I think the people at the aid stations might have said like, oh, you've done it twice, like why don't you go ahead and go through, but I really wanted to do it in the time frame of the race.
Right. I mean, you wanted to stick to the rules.
Right. Exactly.
The rules of the game. You didn't want any special treatment.
Right. Exactly. Because I didn't want people to say, oh, well, yeah, I can do that too if I got special treatment.
Oh, of course. You know, we let him through because he already ran it once.
Right. So I didn't want that at all. So I made it to around mile 160, 165. I'm not sure exactly.
Golly, that's crazy.
Just wasn't. The sweepers caught me, and they were like, you know, you can keep going with us to the next aid station, but you're not going to make the cutoff. And, you know, so I was like, all right, well, I'll call it here. So I made some mistakes, and this year I'm going to fix those mistakes and hopefully be able to cross the finish
What was
line.
your biggest issue you ran into, you felt like?
There were several different things. Number one is it was pretty cold last year. It was in the low 30s at night, and it rained on me 2 nights.
That's tough.
And so yeah, I just got really depleted the second night. And then the other thing is just like, because of that, because I got behind and because it was cold, I just wasn't able to sleep at all. And so my plan was just to lay on the side of the trail and take a 10 or 15 minute nap, but because it was so cold, I never really got that opportunity.
I'm sure that wouldn't be easy anyway because
No,
it's cold outside.
Right.
I mean, let's face it. So
Yeah. So, you know, it was 100-mile cutoffs, not 200-mile cutoffs, but, you know, those were my big mistakes. And I think also if I would have had the first and second night, I was totally alone. And so I've added some pacers this year at night, and I think that'll help out quite a bit.
Oh, of course it will.
Yeah.
I mean, having somebody with you is a game changer.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, just having that person that, hey, I'm here, right here with you, and you don't get in your head, and you're not like,
let's go this way, not that way.
Right, you don't go off in left field, you know,
Exactly.
trying to, you know, forgetting where you are. So, all right, we're back. Technical issue with the old camera there. We're back, and we're going to be wrapping things up here. We just got finished talking about Jason's FKTs, and now we're going to move on to something really cool that he does. Be a cool, kind of like a dream job, honestly.
Yeah.
So Jason basically, he runs an outdoor store, and not just any outdoor store. In my opinion, this is like the coolest outdoor store, and I'm just not saying that because you're sitting beside me. I can safely say I really enjoy your store. So Jason runs Cumberland Transit, which if you're not familiar with it, it's a great outdoor store downtown here in Nashville. It's near the Parthenon. Great location.
Yeah.
I mean, location's great.
Right by Vanderbilt.
Right by Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
And I mean, he has everything here. The building's cool. The store is cool. He's got absolutely anything you might want. But so how did you get into Cumberland Transit?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy. I was in technology. Like, my career was technology, and I always say, like, my life got saved because I got laid off from my technology job and just kind of didn't know what I was going to do with myself. I was unemployed for a year, and just like didn't want to go back to technology. Like, it makes a lot of money, but I just wasn't into it. And so I came in here just looking for part-time work one day. Like, I told myself, I was driving by West End, and I told myself, if there's a spot in front of Cumberland Transit, I'm going to stop and see if they need any help. And so I did, and they needed part-time work, and I used to work Fridays and Saturdays, and that was all I did. And at one point, the manager came to me, and he was just like, "Hey, I've got this stockroom position opening up. Would you like to do that?" And I was like, "Yeah, that sounds great." And so I did it, and kind of worked except for the bike department. I've worked every department in the store, and just I've been here for 15 years, and it's just a really special place. A few years back, one of the owners, TJ, approached me and said, "Hey, you've been here a long time. You have a lot of sweat equity. Would you like to buy in and be a part owner of the store?" And so I said, "Yeah, of course. Like, that's
heck yeah,
that's the dream." So
right.
I became a part owner, and I love the place. There's something about this place that attracts really special people. We have a lot of people that have been here for even longer than I have, 20, 25, 30 years. Been in business since 1971.
Yes.
Not really in this capacity. It's a lot different than how it started off, but just a great place. And like you said, it's a total dream job.
It definitely is. And I mean, if you haven't been here, it's worth coming to. And I imagine most of you who are watching this video has been who hasn't been to Cumberland Transit? Right. I mean, I can tell you, I'll drive down here just to get a shirt.
Yeah.
I have on multiple occasions.
Although on a daily basis, people walk in here and they're like, "I've never been in here, and I've lived here for 20 years." I'm like, "Come on, guys." But I think, it's deceptive on the outside. It doesn't look like it's as big as it is.
Right, and then you come inside and it's like, holy cow.
Yeah,
I mean, you got like a
store.
coffee shop, you guys have backpacking supplies, you have shoes galore, you have
trail running stuff,
you have you do fishing stuff,
yep,
right?
fishing,
you have bike shop.
Yep.
I mean, you literally do it all here, and I think that is what's amazing, because for me, I could literally spend hours looking at everything in here, because he has it's just super cool. So that's awesome. So I guess running a shop like this, do you find is there any major challenges with running an outdoor shop?
Yeah, I mean, just kind of what you think. It's having to deal with people and customers and stuff like that. I always tell people until I got into working with the public, I had no idea how weird people can be. We get strange people that come in here, and that's the toughest part, is just working with people that aren't very nice, that sort of stuff. Theft.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Those kind of things. Otherwise, it's like I said, most people love this place, so most of the time it's a pretty easy job.
Oh, I would imagine so.
Yeah.
I'd imagine so. In this atmosphere, it's just awesome. So,
yeah.
Well, I really appreciate it, Jason. I mean,
yeah.
It's been a great time. I mean, I could probably talk to you forever, but I mean, I know it's time for you to go home, and I need to go home.
Yeah.
I literally got off work, drove down here, and Jason just got off work.
Yeah.
So we literally both just got off work, and so we're probably both ready to call it a night. So thank you again.
Of course.
I really appreciate your time.
Me.
And I mean, it's just great talking to you. So thank you again, everybody. That's it for this one. I will see you guys on the trails.